The story of Oedipus, Greek mythology. Just imagine waking up one day and realizing your entire life was a setup. Your parents weren't your parents. Your wife is actually your mom, and the man you killed in a random roadside fight was your real father. Sounds like a twisted soap opera, right? Well, that was Oedipus's reality. He wasn't just some unlucky guy. He was cursed from birth, tossed aside as a baby, and then unknowingly walked right into the very nightmare he was trying to avoid. This isn't just a story about fate. It's about what happens when running from the truth only takes you straight into its trap. There was a time when Thebes was not plagued by riddles or bloodlines cursed to fold in on themselves. It was just a city ruled by a king and queen like any other, Laius and Jocasta. But peace doesn't last long when fate has already written the ending. And for Laius, the end began long before his son ever cried his first breath. It started with a prophecy, not the kind you can ignore, not some vague omen. This was clear, terrifyingly clear. If Laius and Jocasta ever had a child, that child would grow up to kill his father and marry his mother. It didn't say he might. It said he would. That kind of prophecy doesn't come lightly. It came from the Oracle of Delphi, the mouthpiece of the gods. And in ancient Greece, when the gods speak, you listen. Laius should have turned his back on fatherhood forever, and for a while he did. But time, desire, and wine can dull even the sharpest warnings. He and Jocasta conceived a child anyway. Maybe they thought they'd outsmart the gods. Maybe they thought they could play fate at its own game. They were wrong. When the child was born, Laius didn't hold him close. He had his feet bound together, pierced and tied, and handed him off to a servant with a single order: leave him to die. Abandon him on the slopes of Mount Cithaeron. Exposure was a cruel but common end. It wasn't murder, not directly. The mountain would do the dirty work. Or the wolves, or the cold, or hunger. Either way, Laius believed the child wouldn't live to see the next dawn. But fate doesn't break that easily. The servant couldn't go through with it. Maybe he pitied the baby. Maybe he feared divine punishment. Whatever the reason, instead of leaving the child to die, he passed him to another shepherd, one from Corinth. That shepherd didn't know anything about curses or prophecies. All he saw was a helpless baby with bound feet. He brought him back to his city and handed him over to the royal couple there, King Polybus and Queen Merope. They'd been childless. They named the boy Oedipus, swollen foot, and raised him as their own. Oedipus grew up believing he was the prince of Corinth, destined to inherit the throne. He loved his parents, trusted them, and he had no idea the story of his life had already taken a detour before he could even crawl. But rumors have a way of finding their target. Whispers crept into Oedipus's ears. The claims that he wasn't the real son of Polybus and Merope were frightening. He didn't want to believe it. But doubt is a seed. It grows fast and ugly. So he did what many Greeks did in times of uncertainty. He went to the Oracle of Delphi. But the oracle didn't give him a clear answer about his parentage. Instead, it hit him with a prophecy of its own, that he would kill his father and marry his mother. Oedipus was horrified. He loved his parents, Polybus and Merope, as far as he knew, and the idea of hurting them, of violating the deepest lines of morality, was unbearable. He made a decision. He would never return to Corinth. If he stayed far away, the prophecy couldn't come true. He thought he was outsmarting destiny, but destiny doesn't play fair. Here is a clear, detailed summary that removes poetic language and keeps the narrative factual, grounded and explanatory. Just like before, Oedipus left Corinth to avoid fulfilling a prophecy that said he would kill his father and marry his mother. While traveling toward Thebes, he encountered a man riding in a chariot on a narrow road. A dispute broke out over right-of-way, and the confrontation quickly turned violent. Oedipus killed the man and several of his attendants, leaving only one survivor who fled. Unaware of the man's identity, Oedipus continued his journey, not knowing he had just killed King Laius of Thebes, his biological father. When Oedipus arrived near Thebes, the city was already in crisis. King Laius had recently been murdered, and a creature, known as the Sphinx, was terrorizing the population by killing anyone who failed to answer her riddle. The riddle asked what creature walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 at midday, and 3 in the evening. Oedipus answered correctly by explaining that the riddle referred to a human being who crawls as a baby, walks upright as an adult, and uses a cane in old age. Defeated, the Sphinx killed herself and Thebes was freed from her threat. Because he saved the city, Oedipus was celebrated as a hero. With Laius dead, he was offered the throne of Thebes and married the widowed queen Jocasta. Neither of them knew the truth of their relationship. They ruled together successfully for many years, stabilizing the city and earning the admiration of the people. During this time, they had 4 children, 2 sons, Eteocles and Polynices, and 2 daughters, Antigone and Ismene. Despite the appearance of prosperity, unease slowly returned. Strange signs and rumors of divine displeasure began to circulate. Jocasta experienced disturbing dreams, and Oedipus struggled with lingering doubts about his past. News arrived that Polybus, the king of Corinth, whom Oedipus believed to be his father, had died of natural causes. This confused Oedipus, as part of the prophecy appeared unfulfilled. Yet his sense of unease did not disappear. Soon after, a devastating plague struck Thebes. Crops failed, animals died, and people suffered widespread illness and death. Seeking answers, Oedipus consulted the oracle, which declared that the city was cursed because the murderer of King Laius still lived among them. Determined to save Thebes, Oedipus vowed to uncover the killer and bring justice. He summoned the blind prophet Tiresias, who was reluctant to speak. When pressed, Tiresias revealed that Oedipus himself was the murderer, and that he had unknowingly killed his father and married his mother. Oedipus reacted with anger and denial, accusing Tiresias of deceit and conspiracy. However, further questioning of witnesses, including the shepherd who had spared him as an infant, gradually confirmed the truth. As the evidence became undeniable, Jocasta realized the reality of their situation. Overwhelmed by horror and shame, she withdrew and later took her own life by hanging herself in her chambers. When Oedipus discovered her body, he was overcome by despair. Taking the gold brooches from her clothing, he blinded himself by stabbing his eyes repeatedly. He believed that he no longer deserved sight after uncovering the truth of his actions. The prophecy Oedipus had tried to escape was fulfilled completely, not through intention but through ignorance and fate. His efforts to avoid his destiny ultimately led him directly toward it, bringing ruin to himself and suffering to those around him. The servants screamed. The palace guards rushed in, but there was no stopping it. The king had fallen. The truth had come full circle. The prophecy had unfolded perfectly, unstoppable, inevitable. The kingdom mourned, not just for its queen or for its now blind king, but for itself. The tragedy soaked every stone of Thebes. It wasn't just a curse anymore. It was history. Oedipus didn't ask for sympathy. He didn't want forgiveness. He begged only one thing, and that was exile. He asked to be banished, to wander the world blind and broken, far from the children he had fathered in sin, far from the city he had once saved, far from the throne soaked in blood. He had answered the Sphinx's riddle years ago, but he never saw the riddle of his own life, until it was far too late. The people of Thebes stood in silence as their fallen king was led away blind, barefoot, dragging his shame behind him like a second cloak. The gates of Thebes shut behind him, and by his side walked Antigone, his daughter. She had refused to let him go alone. While others looked away in disgust or sorrow, she chose loyalty. She led him gently, one hand always touching his arm, the other clearing the path ahead. The two of them wandered, city to city, mountain to valley, seeking shelter but rarely finding welcome. People had heard the tale. Rumors moved faster than feet. A man who killed his father and married his mother? Cursed, tainted, dangerous. Many shut their doors. Some threw stones. Others simply stared, not with hatred but with fear, as if the gods might strike them next just for showing kindness. Still, Antigone remained. And when Oedipus decided to talk to Antigone, to trees, to the wind, he told his story as a man who once believed he could outsmart destiny. A man who tried to run from a prophecy only to sprint directly into its arms. A man who wanted to do good and caused more harm than he could ever take back. And people began to listen. One day they arrived at Colonus, a village on the outskirts of Athens. It was quiet and peaceful. Oedipus asked to stop there. The elders of Colonus were wary at first, but when they saw the girl leading him, they softened and gave him water and shade. And there, under olive trees, Oedipus felt something he hadn't felt in years: stillness. It was there that Theseus, king of Athens, found him. Unlike others, Theseus didn't see a curse. He saw a story, He saw a man broken not by sin, but by fate, and more importantly, he saw wisdom. Theseus welcomed him, not as a pariah, but as a guest, and Oedipus, touched by the kindness, offered something rare in return: the promise of a sacred burial site, a resting place blessed by the gods. For the first time in years, Oedipus smiled. He didn't know when it would come, but he knew it was near. The end. And it came quietly. One evening, Oedipus asked Antigone to walk him to a secluded grove. He spoke softly, as if he were already halfway between two worlds. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He simply thanked her for walking beside him when the rest of the world had turned away. He told her to be strong, to protect her sister, to forgive her brothers, even if they never deserved it. Then he stepped into the darkness. Only Theseus witnessed what happened next. He claimed Oedipus vanished. No pain, no death, just a passing like mist into morning light. The earth accepted him. The gods finally gave their peace. And thus ended the story of Oedipus, the man who solved riddles but never his own. And his legacy was just one complicated one. His sons, Eteocles and Polynices, fought for the throne like wolves over scraps. They turned Thebes into a battlefield and died by each other's hand, brother killing brother, a cycle of violence that never stopped spinning. His daughters fared better at first. Antigone remained strong, loyal, defiant. But even she, in time, was crushed by the weight of justice and cruelty, buried alive for standing by what was right. Ismene faded into the background, her voice never as loud, her fire never as bright. But her loyalty was just as deep. Thebes shattered. It became a city haunted by memory, rebuilt and broken again and again, but its story lived on. Not as a warning or as a tale of sin, but as a question, or rather, a puzzle. Generations passed. Kingdoms fell. Languages changed. But the name Oedipus remained. Oedipus didn't want to be a legend. He just wanted answers. A man with good intentions, caught in a divine trap older than himself. He tried to rewrite the script, redraw the map, and make new rules. But fate had already written the ending, and still he walked the path. Because sometimes the story isn't about victory. It's about courage, about walking into the fire when every part of you wants to run. He tried to escape fate. But fate wasn't even chasing him. It was waiting, and it knew every turn, every shadow, every heartbeat. It had a map, and Oedipus followed it all the way to the end. What are your thoughts about this story? Pathetic? Whatever it is, we would love to know in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more informative videos. We'll see you in the next video.